So we have been continuously making improvement. And the latest improvement that came thanks to Corona was because, as you know, there was transport breakdown and many problems, logistics problem came up. The farmer who wanted to take his commodity from a village to a market, or a trader who wanted to take his bought commodity from one market to another place, it was very difficult for him to connect with the logistics provider. So just like the call service for the transportation, we have now a call service for the logistics. So our eNAM platform today is connected to the Truckers Association platform. So more than 2.5 lakh transporters of the country today are connected like Ola system to the eNAM. And all the transport systems, different transport systems today are all connected to this. So now it becomes very efficient. That means you can call for a truck which is nearest at the nearest place to transport your commodity. So this simple example shows that one platform can start hosting several other services. It did not host only one service. It can host transport service, it can host processing service, it can host transaction service. So different kinds of services can be added to the technology. So this necessitates that when we develop a platform, we make it so robust, so strong that it is able to take on different kinds of add-ons. So that is very important. A question that was asked and that has been also raised, escalated here is about REMS. You know, eNAM is popular, but there's one more platform called REMS. Now, REMS is actually a predecessor of eNAM. REMS is a trade online trade platform that was developed by Karnataka state, South Indian state, in association with a corporate sector. And so it is a private public partnership mode. Karnataka was the first state to roll out online trade platform. So today around 200 of their markets are on the trade platform. So when we started eNAM subsequently, the two were not talking to one another. Now, under our Act, APMC Act, what we have said is we need to break monopolies, which means that if we have only one trade platform, there can be a monopoly. We have said any number of trade platforms can come up within the government sector and private sector. So government itself can have more than one platform. Large number of private players can come and develop their platforms. When we have larger number of platforms, but we want it to be one single market, it is obvious that these different trade platforms must get integrated. Hence, when we developed a eNAM platform at the national level, we adopted what is called an open source, open architecture, so that it is able to interoperate with any number of platforms. So today, in the last 1 year, eNAM and REMS are integrated and interoperable. That means a farmer in Karnataka who is trading on REMS platform can also get integrated onto the eNAM platform and therefore be transacting with a trader in Uttar Pradesh or Punjab or Maharashtra. So a technology platform, its design, its architecture are extremely important, and that has to be kept in mind by the developers. So REM stays, eNAM stays. Now, you must also remember that this trade platform, which we developed for APMCs, is actually connecting physical markets. But we, as I was telling you, and should be the policy everywhere in the world, in the interest of farmers, that there is no monopoly. So in order to break the monopoly of the APMCs, Government of India came up with an alternate trade channel using its constitutional authority, and that is now a new act. The act name is very big. In short, let's call it as Direct Trade Act. Now, what is a Direct Trade Act? APMCs enable transactions at that APMC market. It's a physical space. It could be a 100-acre area, 200-acre area. So primarily, transaction is happening at these platforms. Now, all the space outside the APMC is a free area. So now, under the new Parliamentary Act, what's called Direct Trade Act, the entire space outside these APMCs is now recognized as a market area and is called as a trade space. And it is in this trade space that the farmers and the traders sitting anywhere can start transacting. And that is what is called direct trade. That means farmers can sell from anywhere to anywhere across the country. Unlike under the APMCs, where normally the state is a jurisdiction, now it becomes a direct trade. The point of bringing up direct trade is that under the Act now, we have allowed any number of transaction trade platforms to be developed on the digital technology. Both government and private sector can register and develop any number of technologies, but their technology will adhere to the basic standards so that interoperability is happening. So now, on these trade platforms, the trade happens outside. So primarily we'll have now two channels, one APMC channel and then the direct trade channel. So the farmer may find it may either trade on the APMC platform or on the direct trade platform. So this is another digital technology that has just been enabled, and we will see over the next 1 year, large number of trade transaction platforms will come up outside of the APMCs, and India actually becomes one nation, one market in the true sense. Now, the third one is that we are talking about the contract farming, etc. I think what we should be looking at is that what we have now done is that if the farmers are to be enabled to trade and transact within a free environment, then the farmers who are weaker of the party compared to the corporate sector, to the private sector, or any other trader, they need to be financially strengthened. How do they get financially strengthened? That means we need to provide them access to institutional credit at the production stage as well as the post production stage. So now, at the production stage, we have got what is called interest subvention. That means concessional rate of interest on the loans that is made available to the farmer for growing his crops or raising his animals or taking up to fishery farming. And once he has harvested, as you know, immediately after the harvest, the production glut is there, the demand is lesser compared to the supply, the market prices fall. So we should help the farmer to store his commodity and sell when the prices go up. If he has to do that, then he has to be enabled access to again institutional credit after the harvest. So we have got what is called ENWR, Electronic Negotiable Warehouse Receipt System. This is a very important tool. What is ENWR? The farmer takes his commodity to a recognized, authorized, registered warehouse, keeps his commodity there, and the warehouse keeper generates an electronic warehouse receipt. That means it says X quantity of commodity of this farmer is there in my godown. The value of this commodity is so much, and he gives him an electronic receipt. Now, electronic receipt is also accessible by the banker. So the banker now looks at the ENWR and provides him a certain percentage of the value of the commodity as a loan at concessional rate. When he gets that loan, now he's able to meet his immediate requirement. There's no necessity for him to sell his commodity immediately. And then he can wait for some more time to sell at proper prices. So see how digital technology helps. And we are now taking this particular thing forward by deploying what is called a blockchain technology. That is, as you know, a open ledger system. In an open ledger system, where different stakeholders, for example, in ENWR, the farmer, the banker, and the warehouse keeper, all three people must not doubt each other. The banker who gives loan to the farmer must be sure that the X quantity of the farmer's commodity is in that warehouse. Warehouse keeper should know that that particular commodity is what against which the loan has been taken. So now these three people under the blockchain on the blockchain's technology are able to have access to this technology, same data, same information at every point of time. So this brings in credibility, honesty, and ensures that all the three stakeholders are supporting one another. So blockchain technology is the way forward in every segment of agriculture, business management, just as it is in other sectors of the economy. So we are taking this way many kinds of things forward, whether it is a contract farming under the new act, where under the sponsoring company and the farmers and various service providers need to be on the same plane, or promoting farmer producers organizations so that they are able to now transact. For example, the farmer producers organization can also onboard the enam or the transaction platform and sell from their own farm without having to go to any market. So a number of initiatives have been now taken on the under the digital technology. And Dr. Sanka, yeah, the issue was private-public partnership. Yes. See, one thing is that it is very important that we create a policy framework where we let the corporate sector, the private sector, to become part of the development process. Now, to give you a concrete example of private-public partnership relating to REMS in Karnataka, it is a partnership between Government of Karnataka and the National Commodity Exchange based in Mumbai. Now, there is a partnership where the technology was developed by the private sector. They have a model for revenue generation and revenue sharing. Whenever we enter into kind of a PPP, after all, a private sector, for example, comes in only when it sees a revenue generation for itself, a return on their investment. So we need to, at the initial stage itself, negotiate properly and be very clear about the roles, responsibilities, and the revenue sharing formula. Then I'm sure there will be no problem. Normally, the conflicts arise because things are not clear. So I think if we are able to design those kind of models, we should be able to take it forward. Likewise, in our own ministry, we have got something called NCDC. It is a National Cold Chain Development Center. It is another bright example of the private public partnership. Now, here NCDC, we from the government side, we have our officials there or the people appointed for the market there who are experts in cold chain. But then the contributions to the initial corpus fund came from the corporate sectors. And the understanding is that we enable technologies, advice to the corporate sector on the cold chain. And that has been going on for almost 10 years now. So there are many examples like this where we can start developing private-public partnership modes. Now, under the contract farming, it is going to be purely a private partnership, of course, because the farmers or at the individuals or as farmer producers organizations enter into contract with the sponsoring company. But then what we now need to take care under the act is to see that the farmers' interests are protected and how this partnership is sustained. One challenge always that we've seen from our experiences, let us say there's a contract between or agreement between the sponsoring company and the farmers for particular price on the delivery of the commodity by the farmer. Since the future price risks or price fluctuations are common, post the harvest, if the prices go up exorbitantly, the farmer refuses to deliver his commodity to the sponsoring company because he thinks he'll get a better price outside. And likewise, if the prices fall terribly, then we also have a situation where the sponsoring company may not be willing to purchase. So, how do we therefore have a policy or a regulation guideline where we create a win win situation for the farmers and the sponsoring company, and they are able to meet their commitment, their obligations without deviating from their obligations? So, that's where I think whether it is private public partnership or public public or private private, we need to build in those systems. And I think that's what I mean, wherever successful examples are there, they have succeeded that way. And this is why we are actually also going forward. So REMS has been a very successful experiment, and I have seen no problems in that particular state. And it is thanks to REMS that we evolved ENAM across and now the whole country is covered under that. That's the thing. Yeah. See, now there is no cost involved in this except for the technology development. It is an add-on service. In any case, a farmer or a trader who needs to transport his commodities will be hiring some service, either a tractor or a truck or a reefer van. Now, let us assume a farmer wanting to transport his commodity in a particular village. Most farmers, being small and marginal, may not be having agriculture commodity to be sent which can fill one truck. He may be able to fill one fourth of the truck or half the truck, but poor fellow has to pay the whole amount. So now, when our software is connected with the transporter logistics platform, now farmers in that particular village are able to first call for one truck, and that one trucker is able to take the commodities that will fill his truck space, and therefore the cost comes down for the farmer. Now, what happens in the Uber for Uberization and for Uber by transport, which we are all very familiar with? When we seek for a Uber or a taxi, we hail a taxi using our app. The taxi coming to us is the nearest one, which is most readily available. So likewise here, the farmer when he hails a transport on his application, the transport that is readily available or which is nearest available vehicle is coming to the village. What does this do? First is, since it is coming in time, he is able to transport his commodity quickly and there is no compromise of quality because agriculture commodities are perishable. As you know, if you stay for a long time, it starts compromise compromising in terms of quality. Second, since it is coming from the nearest place, maybe from the same village or a nearby village, the transportation cost obviously becomes less. So there is no additional cost in this thing. Only thing, what I was trying to point out was that you can keep on adding services. Let me give you one more example. Under the Contract Farming Act, for example, we have called it as Contract Farming and Services Act. What does it mean? A contract farming need not be only for price assurance. It can also be for services. Let us say, let us say that the farmers, group of farmers enter into a contract with a pesticide company or pest management. It's a service. Generally, as you know, pesticide dealers sell only pesticide. They don't come and manage your farm with respect to pests or pest spray. Whereas under the contract act that we have done now, a pesticide company or a retailer enters into a contract with the farmers to provide not only the pesticide but also look after the pest management service. So he goes, deploys his people there. He's continuously supervising the farms, whether the threshold limit of the pest is building up. If it has built up, what is the pesticide I should spray? Now, he is managing a group of farmers. That means a parcel of farms. When there is a parcel of farms, he can now utilize a drone to spray the farms. If every farmer has to spray, then it becomes costly because first he has to open the entire bottle of pesticide. Then he has to use his backpack, which is a lot of drudgeries involved. And he has sprayed his farm, but the neighbor has not sprayed. The insects will all go to the neighbor's farm. So when you have large operation, the scales of economy start operating, and then technology starts getting deployed, and then it becomes less costly. The transaction cost goes down. So this is how we need to bring in cost efficiency to managing agriculture. So agriculture management today needs deployment of technology, deployment of business principles, deployment of scales of operations, so that small and marginal farmers in our country stand to benefit from cost efficiency and greater profit. So that's the point. Our policies must actually start getting reoriented towards that, not producing at any cost. It is production at cost efficiency, not producing anyhow. It has to be ecologically sustainable. It has to be ecologically sustained. In fact, you also have that policy I was seeing, that you want to produce safe food. You want to produce agroecologically aligned produce. In fact,